welcome to this reading vlog where I want to start a project, and that project is called my TBR card project, which involves me actually reading my TBR. I know, wild ideas, right? So the first book on this list that I wanted to read is called The Power, and it is a dystopian book. I think it's more of like a literary written book in terms of its narrative, and I thought I'd give it a few chapters and see if I like it, and if not, I'll report back about why. For the other books that I was thinking, I was like, I really need to attack the rest of Alice Oseman's young adult books on my list because I have had those for a little while now and they've just been sitting there for too long, like way too long. So Loveless and I Was Born for This are potentially going to be next. I Was Born for This will be first because Loveless was most recently published, so I kind of wanted to go in publication order. But then I was like, are you avoiding the actual problem here? Because there is a long book on here that I feel like I am actively avoiding at this point. And that book is The Lost War, which is a very dense self-published fantasy book. And I thought I would like this based on the first chapter or so that I read in a Read It or Unhaul It vlog, but I honestly need to continue further to see whether this soldier character, this veteran soldier who is jaded, is actually going to be a good representation of like that morally grey character that I usually like to see with that heart of gold, because at the beginning of the story he has helped somebody who was in a victim position, and I'm like, are you a good person or were you just there at the right time? Am I going to like your voice continuing through the story, and am I going to like the bits of world building that I've seen when they're developed more? So I think I need to give this a little bit more to decide whether I will like it or not. Unfortunately, this doesn't have an audiobook because it is self-published, so I need to get my butt into gear and see if I'm gonna like it, and that means actually sitting down to read, which I've not done enough of lately. I've also actively been avoiding Outcast, which is the graphic novel volume 1 that Dave has read, didn't love, and then said I probably wouldn't like, and so I've kept it on my TBR card almost in exile, like, yeah, it can stay there because I will quote unquote read it, and it's not being read, so I need to actually address that. If you couldn't tell, it's becoming spring in Australia, so this is kind of my version of a bookish spring clean. So that's what I'm trying to do to my TBR before I do any more book hauls and put them more on this TBR cart. I'm like, I want to start cleaning off the older things on my list so that I can make space for the new ones. That's what I'm trying to do here. So I've read a little bit of The Power now, and it seems to be chronicling different instances of women experiencing this power and essentially awakening it in other women. And the power is kind of like an electrical impulse that feels very innate to use, and some women can control it more so than others, and some have it in a little amount and some are very powerful, and it's how society is now starting to treat women, and it's really tipping the power in favour of women because men are fearing this new ability. So I think it's going to be a very valuable social commentary in terms of everything being flipped, but if it's done too dramatically, then I don't know how it's going to pull it off. It can overcorrect sometimes, and I think if it does that, I'll be like, oh, I don't feel as interested in it as I thought I was going to be. So I hope it sticks to the balance it's striking right now, because it's setting up, I think, a few key players. I don't know if they're going to intermingle or not, but I'm interested to see how they progress, because one seems to be slowly building power based on the voice that is telling her how to influence people in her head. So I'm interested to see where this goes in terms of world building. I'm liking it. I think it's great, but it's very dark. So at some point I think I need to listen to like a romance book or a non-fiction book or something at the same time, because listening to this on my train ride twice a day is very intense. So I think I need a bit of a break from it too. I think I will be continuing this one, which thankfully isn't a surprise. I was hoping that it would be up my alley, and it very much seems to be at the moment. For The Lost War, I have very much been avoiding this one. I haven't thought about it for a while since I filmed that first video clip. So perhaps I need to try and make a little bit more progress in this one as well today and see if it's my thing or not, or it continues to be my thing or not. I also want to try that graphic novel Outcast as well and see whether I put it down, because I think I will. I don't think the pace and the content and the subject matter is going to keep my attention super intrigued. So maybe I'll pivot between Outcast and this one. Let's see how the day progresses. I got distracted, full disclosure. I didn't read the things that I said I was gonna read, which is, I guess, on brand for me, but I did finish The Power. And I honestly don't know why I finished this, because it was a 2-star read, and that is completely taken me by left field. It discussed obviously themes of power, but in crime, in religion, in gender, in physical capacity, but in the way it conveyed everything through its characters, I just honestly didn't care about all of them, and it seemed like it was trying to do too much, and the execution of it was just meh. And I realized that I was listening to it because I was waiting on other books to be available from my library to borrow, which isn't a reason to read a book, it's a reason to kill time. I was looking forward to it ending so that I could read something else. It just made me feel complacent, and there was a lot of body horror in it and a lot of SA. I don't want to read about that, not in the grotesque detail it conveyed anyhow. This seemed like it was trying to be edgy and also do too much. I didn't care about the religious aspect whatsoever. I could just take it or leave it. Sometimes I tuned out completely and I didn't care who was talking. And when it comes to a book that you're trying to convey really broad, deep themes, you want a character to take you by the hand and lead you through them. And these characters didn't. So 2 stars. Much regret buying this one, but at least I got it from an op shop, so I can just unhaul it without feeling too bad. I didn't buy it at full price, so would not recommend this one. It was very boring. And when it wasn't boring, it was torturing people. So take your entertainment elsewhere, I suppose. This one is the next one that I'm going to make myself read, because unlike The Power, I think I actually will properly DNF this one, but because it's a graphic novel, it won't be too strenuous, I hope. This is me telling future me to read it, because I have put this off for 9 months this year. I need to stop putting it off, address it, and then unhaul it at last. Well, you're gonna be proud of me because I finally started Outcast Volume 1. I got, you can see, like halfway into it, not even, and I just don't think I'm going to enjoy it like I thought, and that's ultimately why I put it off for so long, because I didn't think that it would be my vibe. The art style I can probably get along with, but the plot is more horror with a little bit of demons and stuff in it, and this guy seems to have lost his wife and his child. When it comes to developing a protagonist, I'm all for understanding their trauma, but I don't know, I don't like it when a partner and a child or a partner is killed to further the grief of this character. You can get into their head in a better way. At least build them up a little bit first before tragedy strikes, rather than having it, you know, happen in the past. Anyway, it's probably just not a trope that I really like. That's why I'm not going to continue with this one, so I can remove that from my Goodreads. And then in a move that is going to really surprise you is I read 100 pages of this book, and surprisingly I'm enjoying myself. It has all of those old hat fantasy tropes that you can get on board with and enjoy, like the old mentor who is our protagonist. His name is Aranok, and I had to quickly look that up in the synopsis because all of the characters' names in here are like if someone took their hands to a keyboard and just smashed it and came out with a couple of vowels and not much else. This main character has a relationship with the king, so he saves this boy who is a blacksmith, takes him on and says, you're going to come on a quest with us. And when he goes to confront the king about the guard not being great people and bullying this boy, the king's like, well, we're down on resources. Everyone who was a good person died in the war because casualties were way too high. So I've got all of the good ones out still protecting us, and the ones that are left here aren't very nice. There's this relationship that you don't really understand with the king. They're like almost brotherly, I suppose. They're not directly brothers. I think they're just like found family brothers. And the king sends this guy off. They go on this quest with a bunch of other characters that the king has brought together for a particular purpose, which I'm not entirely clear on yet. And this is a world where there are demons, and obviously the war is quite a thing right now. So, you know, they're going out into this environment where demons might kill them or the war might take them as casualties. So there's a lot of risk involved, and our main character wants to stop by a village, I think, that is part of his childhood to see if people that he loved are still alive, and the king has ordered him against doing so and said, no, you need to go to this place instead. And he's like, sure, but secretly he's going to disagree with the king. So you've got characters that don't really know each other going in a group towards an objective, and I like all of the dynamics that have so far been set up, and I didn't think that I would, because when I start a fantasy book and there are entirely new characters and there are a lot of them, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to connect with all of them. But somehow I'm actually engaged by all of them. I think this writing style is really up my alley. I think it's doing a really good job of balancing everything at the moment, and I hope that continues as we get further into the series, although the action sequences leave a little bit to be desired. But other than that, it's a book that I'm eager to continue. But then on the back of that, happier news, I have some bad news, and that is with I Was Born for This, I'm not going to continue reading it. I'm 20 pages into it. The main character is obsessed with this band called The Ark, and she's made an internet friend and come to stay with her, and both of these girls are obsessed with The Ark, and they're going to this concert very soon. But this is a romance between one of the band members and one of these girls. And I think if I read this when I was like 16, I would be obsessed with it, because Alice Oseman just absolutely nails the tone and the emotions and the interplay of dialogue and relationships between characters of this age. This stuff is genius. Alice Oseman is a genius at capturing all of this intention and emotion without necessarily over explaining it to you. So I think if I again read this when I was a teenager, I would love it, but I'm just really past the ballpark for this one. I tried it and I really don't think it's going to be worth my time to stick to, because I'll probably give it 3 stars, which makes me nervous about Loveless, because that was the other book by Alice that I still had on my to be read pile. Honestly, her box set with Solitaire Radio Silence, Born for This and Loveless, they look great and I'm sure they would be amazing if I read them when I was a teenager, but I'm just not part of the target audience anymore. I feel like I want to say the same about Heartstopper, but I don't know what it is about Heartstopper. For some reason that stuff is my jam. This is not so much though, which is ironic given that it's about a band. Anyway, I'll leave you with that terrible joke and I'll talk about my next book, because I've surprisingly read City of Stairs and I'm over 130 pages into it. I also put the audiobook on hold at my library, which has now come available, so I think I'm going to read this faster than I thought. And the writing style in this is great. It's very complicated, with different continents having wars and civil wars with each other. There's a lot of political argy-bargy going on in here, and our main character is a political envoy trying to solve a murder of a previous mentor of hers. And so she's trying to get in and dig all this information up in 7 days, which is the deadline that she's been given, without, you know, being killed herself. So it's got a lot of intrigue. I think the writing style is fantastic and it's very subtle at points as well. I quite like it. I wouldn't have read more than 100 pages into it if I didn't enjoy it. I'm pretty happy with this one. I'm disappointed that I've had to DNF a few books so far, but I feel like I'm like a reptile shedding layers of skin so that I can be new and fresh and read things that I definitely want to read. Forgive me, the birds are going a little bit crazy outside, but I needed to clarify that this one might not actually address the wife passing away, because there was a phone call in this at the very, very beginning, like in the first couple of panels, and that phone call showed a woman watching a child outside playing. So it could have been an ex-wife and the child, so they're not actually dead, but I just don't really care for the storytelling. So yeah, it's definitely remaining a did not finish for me. Wow, okay, so I thought I would have read a lot more, but clearly my chaotic vibe did not allow for that to happen, so I've not read any more of City of Stairs, but I do plan on reading this or finishing it this month because I'm going away and I'll take this with me. But then I also read more of this and I'm 150 pages into it now, not too much further than when I last updated, but honestly I'm still enjoying it. I just know that it's not got that necessary spark that is going to make it a 4.5 or a 5 stars, so I'm dragging my feet a little bit on it, but I'm still enjoying it, so maybe it has potential to grow, but I'm not sure yet. This one also, I realized, has been picked up by a publisher. I think it published through the mainstream publishing in like May this year, so if you're wanting to read it you can get it through like Orbit or something. We'll continue that as well. Not sure if I'm going to bring it with me when I'm on leave from work, but we'll see. And then in a big plot twist, I actually started Loveless by Alice Oseman, and after putting down I Was Born for This, I thought this would go the same way, but I'm like 230 pages into it, so I'm 51% through, and I'm like, oh, I actually prefer it when Alice ages up her characters. The characters in here are 18, 19 years old and they're going to university or college, I suppose, and that made it a bit more palpable for me. There are still parts in here where our main character is clearly lying to herself, which is a little bit annoying when it comes to the plot, but you also see her starting to grow and recognize things and have this intense fear about certain things too, so it was valuable to see that aspect of her thinking as well. It made me go, yeah, okay, she's got some stuff to process before she can get ahead on actually discussing things, so it makes sense for the plot. This is still probably going to sit around a 3.5 stars for me though, because while it is great writing, it's quick to read, it's very immersive, it just doesn't have the spark either. Maybe that's my fault, or maybe it's the books I'm choosing lately, because everything seems to be like middle of the road so far, except for City of Stairs. That's at least a 4 at the moment. Whether it goes up or down, I'm not sure yet, but this is also talking about a character who is potentially ace or asexual, and she doesn't have any crushes on people, she doesn't think about herself sexually with anybody, and so it's her realizing and exploring that, but it's a very slow burn realization, but it's also very involved. And I think Alice Oseman is also ace, so it's like looking through her eyes as a lens, which is really valuable. So I do enjoy what I'm reading, I'm just not hyped about it. But that is my reading progress in terms of getting my to be read cart down. I think I've done okay in terms of the reason that I started this vlog. I've started a bunch of books that I thought I might put off. I've DNF'd a couple of books like the Outcast volume and I Was Born for This, so I think I've made a decent amount of progress. There's also a book that came in at my library and it's the audiobook for The Frugal Wizard, which is behind me. I've done something chaotic and I borrowed it, and I had so many other audiobooks on hold at the library. I talked about them in my currently reading video that's just gone by, so I'm a bit overwhelmed, but I think it'll be okay. Like, it's gotta be okay, right? So anyway, that is the vibe I'll leave you on for the end of this vlog. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down below in the comments and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.